Part 1. Rain pressed softly against the windows of the small apartment in Dayton, Ohio, blurring the streetlights into trembling halos. Emily Carter sat on the edge of her bed, holding her phone in both hands, staring at a message she had already read a dozen times. "We regret to inform you," the words echoed louder than the thunder outside. Another job rejection. Another reminder that hope, once bright and loud, had become something fragile and quiet. 3 years earlier, Emily's life had been full of ordinary happiness. She was a school counselor, proud of the way children trusted her, proud of the small victories when a shy child smiled or a troubled one finally spoke. Then came the accident. A drunk driver, a twisted intersection, and the sudden absence of her husband, Daniel. In one night, laughter vanished from her home, replaced by silence that felt heavier than grief itself. After Daniel's death, Emily tried to keep going. She returned to work too soon, telling herself that helping children would help her heal. But grief is patient, it waits until you're alone. Panic attacks crept in during quiet moments. Her performance slipped. Eventually, the school district suggested a temporary leave. Temporary turned into permanent when budget cuts arrived, and Emily found herself unemployed, widowed, and drowning in medical bills from therapy she could no longer afford. That rainy evening, she finally allowed herself to cry. Not the silent tears she'd mastered in public, but deep, shaking sobs that left her breathless. She cried for Daniel, for the life they planned, for the version of herself that once believed pain always had an expiration date. The next morning, Emily forced herself outside. The air was cold, sharp enough to wake her senses. She walked without direction until she reached a small community center with a faded sign, Hope Street Outreach. Through the glass doors, she saw volunteers sorting donated clothes, laughing softly. Something tugged at her chest. She didn't know why, but she stepped inside. The warmth hit her first, then the smell of coffee. A woman with silver-streaked hair looked up and smiled. "You here to help, or you need help?" she asked gently. Emily hesitated. I'm not sure." "That's okay," the woman said. "Most people aren't." She handed Emily a paper cup. "I'm Grace." They talked quietly as the morning passed. Grace didn't ask probing questions, didn't rush Emily to explain her pain. She simply listened. By noon, Emily found herself folding clothes alongside other volunteers, retirees, college students, people who looked like they'd once been broken too. One man, a veteran named Marcus, shared how the center had helped him rebuild after years on the street. A young woman named Lily spoke about escaping an abusive home. Their stories were heavy, yet they spoke with a calm strength Emily envied. For the first time in months, she felt something unfamiliar but welcome: connection. Emily returned the next day. And the next. Volunteering didn't erase her pain, but it softened the edges. She began helping children with homework in the afternoons, rediscovering the gentle patience that once defined her. The kids didn't know her past. To them, she was just Miss Emily, the woman who explained math with silly metaphors and celebrated every small success. One evening, while locking up, Grace turned to her. "You know," she said, "kindness doesn't mean you're healed. It means you're still alive enough to care." That night, Emily walked home under clear skies. The stars felt impossibly distant, yet she looked at them anyway. For the first time since Daniel's death, she didn't feel completely alone. The pain was still there, heavy and real, but beneath it, something new stirred. A quiet hope. Fragile, yes, but alive. Part 2. Winter came early that year, wrapping Dayton in gray skies and biting wind. Emily's routine at Hope Street Outreach became the anchor of her days. Mornings were spent sending out resumes, afternoons with the children, evenings with paperwork and planning. She still struggled financially, still woke from dreams where Daniel was alive and smiling, but she no longer woke up empty. One afternoon, a boy named Noah arrived at the center with his grandmother. He was 8, small for his age, with eyes that held more fear than curiosity. During tutoring, he barely spoke, his hands shaking when he tried to write. Emily recognized the signs immediately. Trauma leaves fingerprints. Weeks passed before Noah finally whispered, "I don't like loud noises." Emily nodded, keeping her voice soft. "That's okay. We can make this a quiet place." As trust grew, Noah began to open up. His father had died in a factory accident. His mother worked 2 jobs and was rarely home. Fear had settled into him the way grief had settled into Emily, silently, persistently. Helping Noah became personal. Each time he smiled, each time his shoulders relaxed, Emily felt something inside her mend, just a little. Then life tested her again. Grace collapsed one morning while setting up chairs. The diagnosis was sudden and serious. The center faced closure without her leadership. Panic rippled through the volunteers. Funding was fragile. Without Grace, Hope Street outreach might disappear. Emily felt the old fear return, sharp and familiar. Loss seemed to follow her like a shadow. That night, she sat alone in the center, lights dim, remembering Grace's words about kindness and survival. She thought of Noah, of Marcus, of Lily. She thought of Daniel, of the way he used to say, "If something matters, you don't wait for someone else to save it." The next day, Emily stood before the volunteers, her hands trembling. "I don't know if I'm the right person," she said honestly. "But I know this place matters. And I know what it's like to lose the one place that gives you hope." They listened. They agreed to try, together. Emily reached out to local businesses, organized small fundraisers, shared stories of the people the center helped. She worked harder than she ever had, fueled not by obligation, but by purpose. Progress was slow, exhausting, and often discouraging. Some days, donations barely covered utilities. Some nights, Emily cried alone, afraid she was failing everyone. But then there were moments that kept her going. A donated check from a stranger who said the center once fed him, a letter from a former volunteer thanking them for saving her life, Noah proudly showing off his improved grades. Months later, Grace returned, thinner but smiling. She watched as Emily managed the chaos with calm strength. "You didn't just keep it alive," Grace said softly. "You helped it grow." Spring arrived, gentle and forgiving. On the anniversary of Daniel's death, Emily visited the place where his ashes were scattered. She brought flowers, but also stories. She told him about the children, the center, the way pain had taught her compassion deeper than she ever knew before. "I still miss you," she whispered. "But I'm learning how to live." As she walked away, sunlight broke through the clouds. Emily knew grief would always be part of her story. But it no longer defined the ending. Kindness, given and received, had carried her from tears to triumph, from pain to hope. And in that journey, she discovered that even a broken heart can become a place where others find healing.